Most people ruin their future quietly, not with one big mistake, but with small daily decisions they barely notice. What you choose to do today feels insignificant, but over time, these tiny choices compound into habits, identities, and outcomes you can't escape. This video explains why your future is already being decided by what you repeat every day, and how to take control before those decisions take control of you. Chapter 1. The Invisible Turning Point. Most people believe their lives change in obvious moments: a promotion, a failure, a breakthrough decision that finally shifts everything. But if you look closely, real change almost never announces itself. It happens quietly, in ordinary days that feel no different from the ones before. The future rarely arrives with drama. It arrives through repetition. There is a moment that decides the direction of your life, and most people never notice when it happens. It is not when you succeed or fail publicly. It is when you choose what to repeat privately. The invisible turning point is not a single event. It is a pattern forming beneath awareness, locking in a trajectory long before results appear. Imagine a plane leaving the runway, perfectly on course. A 1-degree shift in direction would go unnoticed by passengers. No alarms, no turbulence. Yet over time, that tiny deviation determines whether the plane lands in the intended city or hundreds of miles away. Small daily decisions work the same way. They feel harmless, they feel optional, but they quietly decide where you end up. Most people wait for motivation to change their lives. They wait for clarity, energy, or the right moment. But the invisible turning point does not care how you feel. It is activated by what you do consistently. Each day, you are reinforcing a direction. Even when you believe you are standing still, repetition is moving you forward or backward. This is why people often say their life changed suddenly, even though the process took years. The results appeared all at once, but the cause was gradual. The invisible turning point had already passed. The path was already chosen. What felt like a surprise was simply delayed evidence. Small decisions are dangerous because they feel reversible. Skipping one workout, postponing one difficult conversation, choosing comfort over effort one more time. Each decision seems insignificant on its own, but the mind does not track individual choices, it tracks patterns, and patterns create identity. Identity is not formed by what you intend, it is formed by what you repeat. Every small decision casts a vote for the person you are becoming. Over time, these votes accumulate. Eventually, the result feels fixed. People say they lost discipline, confidence, or ambition, as if those qualities vanished overnight. In reality, they were slowly traded away through unnoticed choices. The invisible turning point often happens when people believe they still have time. Time feels abundant early on. The consequences of small decisions are delayed, which makes them easy to ignore. Comfort compounds faster than effort. Avoidance compounds faster than courage. By the time the cost becomes visible, the pattern feels hard to break. This is not because people are weak, it is because the brain is designed to prioritize immediate comfort over distant reward. Small decisions rarely trigger alarm, they rarely feel urgent. That's what makes them powerful. They slip past awareness and install habits quietly. What makes this even more dangerous is how normal everything feels while it is happening. There is no clear signal that you have crossed a line, no moment where the door visibly closes. You wake up one day and realize something has changed, but you cannot pinpoint when. That's the invisible turning point revealing itself. The future is shaped long before it is experienced. By the time you feel stuck, the system is already in motion. This is why dramatic resolutions rarely work. They try to override a pattern with intensity instead of changing the pattern itself. Intensity fades, patterns remain. The invisible turning point does not require perfection, it requires direction. A single aligned decision repeated consistently has more power than sporadic bursts of effort. Progress is not built through extremes, it is built through ordinary choices honored daily.
Understanding this shifts how you view your life. The question is no longer whether you will change, but what direction you are reinforcing today. Every day is a quiet vote. Every habit is a commitment. Every small decision is steering something larger than it appears. This chapter is not meant to pressure you. It is meant to reveal what is already happening. The invisible turning point is always active. The only question is whether you are conscious of it. Awareness does not require immediate transformation. It requires attention. As you move forward, you will begin to see your days differently, not as empty space between big moments, but as the place where everything is decided. The smallest choices you make today are not preparing you for your future. They are creating it.
Chapter 2. Why Big Decisions Matter Less Than You Think. Most people believe their future hinges on a handful of major decisions. The career choice, the relationship, the move to a new place. These moments feel heavy, dramatic, and important, so the mind assigns them enormous weight. But this belief quietly misleads. Big decisions rarely decide the future on their own. What actually determines outcomes is what happens after those decisions, in the ordinary days that follow. A big decision only changes direction on paper. Daily decisions decide whether that direction is ever followed. You can choose the right path and still end up nowhere if your daily behavior does not support it. This is why so many people make what looks like the right choice and still feel stuck years later. The decision was correct, the follow-through was not. Big decisions are easy to overvalue because they feel significant in the moment. They create emotional intensity. They feel like progress. But intensity fades quickly. Once the emotion wears off, only habits remain. Habits either carry the decision forward or quietly undo it. The mind prefers big decisions because they feel efficient. One choice, one moment, one clean shift. Daily decisions feel tedious by comparison, repetitive, small, almost insulting to ambition. But life is not built through dramatic leaps. It is built through alignment repeated under unremarkable conditions. Think of a ship changing course. A sharp turn might alter direction instantly, but maintaining that course requires constant, subtle adjustments. Without them, the ship drifts. No single moment causes the drift. It happens gradually until the destination is missed entirely. Big decisions set the course. Small daily decisions keep you on it. This is why people who make bold choices often feel confused when results do not follow. They assume something went wrong externally. In reality, the internal system did not change. The same routines, the same reactions, the same priorities continued underneath a new label. Over time, the old pattern reasserted itself. Big decisions feel like control. Daily decisions require discipline. Control is attractive. Discipline is quiet. Control creates the illusion that something has been handled. Discipline requires handling it again tomorrow. The danger of focusing on big decisions is that it allows daily negligence to hide. You tell yourself you have already committed. You believe the hardest part is over. Meanwhile, the small choices that actually determine progress receive little attention. Momentum is lost slowly, without resistance. This is why people often say they fell off track without knowing how. They did not fail in one moment. They drifted. They missed one small action, then another. Each omission felt harmless. Together, they rewrote the outcome. Big decisions also inflate pressure. When too much weight is placed on one choice, fear increases. People overthink. They delay. They wait for certainty that never comes. Meanwhile, time passes and daily decisions continue shaping the future anyway. Whether a big decision is made or not, repetition is still operating. The truth is uncomfortable. Even the best decision cannot save you from poor daily habits, and even an imperfect decision can lead to extraordinary outcomes if daily behavior is aligned. Direction matters, but consistency matters more. This understanding removes the fantasy of sudden transformation. There is no single moment where everything changes. There is only the moment where you begin honoring the small choices consistently. That is where real change starts, even if it looks boring from the outside. Big decisions are visible. People talk about them, they post about them, they celebrate them. Small decisions are private. No one applauds them.
No one notices. That is why they are so powerful. They operate without interference. When you understand this, responsibility shifts. You stop waiting for the perfect choice and start paying attention to what you repeat. You realize that your future is not fragile, it is resilient. It is being built every day regardless of how you feel. This does not mean big decisions are meaningless. They matter, but they are not decisive. They are invitations. Daily decisions decide whether you accept them. The future belongs not to those who make bold declarations, but to those who quietly live in alignment with their intentions. One day at a time, one small decision at a time. In the next chapter, we will go deeper into why small decisions feel so easy to ignore, and how the psychology of repetition shapes identity long before results appear.
Chapter 3. The Psychology of Small Choices. Small choices feel harmless because the human mind is not designed to fear them. The brain evolved to react to immediate threats, not slow shifts that unfold quietly over time. A single decision rarely feels dangerous when its consequences are distant, abstract, or delayed. This is why small choices pass beneath awareness so easily. They do not trigger urgency. They do not feel like commitment. They feel optional, forgettable, and reversible. That is precisely what gives them power. The brain is a prediction machine that learns through repetition. What you do once is treated as an experiment. What you do repeatedly becomes an expectation. Over time, the brain stops questioning behaviors that occur again and again. They become familiar. Familiar becomes comfortable. Comfortable becomes automatic. This process does not require intention or reflection. It does not ask whether the behavior is helpful or harmful. It only tracks frequency. Small choices exploit this system perfectly. They are too minor to feel like identity shifts, yet they quietly train identity anyway. Skipping one responsibility does not redefine who you are, but skipping it repeatedly teaches the brain something about what you tolerate and what you avoid. Eventually, the behavior feels normal and changing it feels unnatural. This is why people struggle to explain how they became someone they do not recognize. They did not choose it consciously, they trained it gradually. The psychology of small choices operates below the level of dramatic awareness. It does not announce itself, it integrates. Another reason small choices are so influential is emotional efficiency. The brain is always calculating energy cost before long-term benefit. When faced with a decision, it favors the option that requires the least immediate discomfort. Small choices that provide quick relief or comfort are rewarded instantly, even if they undermine future goals. The relief is felt now, the cost is delayed. The brain discounts the future by default. This creates a dangerous imbalance. Choices that feel good now but harm later are reinforced quickly. Choices that feel uncomfortable now but beneficial later are postponed. Over time, this imbalance shapes behavior without permission, not because people lack discipline, but because the system is working exactly as designed. Small choices also allow avoidance without confrontation. Big decisions force clarity and accountability. Small ones allow delay. You can tell yourself it does not matter. You can tell yourself you will handle it later. This postponement feels like peace, but it is only deferred tension. The mind stores unresolved choices quietly, adding weight over time. Repetition resolves uncertainty. Once a behavior is repeated enough, the brain stops debating it. The internal dialogue fades. This is why habits feel easier than decisions. Automation removes friction. That efficiency is useful when habits are aligned. It is destructive when they are not. Identity forms after behavior, not before. Most people believe they must feel different to act different. In reality, acting differently on a consistent basis is what changes how you feel about yourself. Small choices are identity builders because they occur frequently enough to shape self-perception. The brain keeps score of what you do when no one is watching. Over time, these memories form a quiet narrative. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through, or someone who postpones, someone who chooses effort, or someone who chooses ease. This narrative influences future behavior automatically. Small choices benefit from invisibility. No one reacts strongly to them. There is no external feedback loop to correct them early.
Big mistakes trigger response, small deviations do not. This allows patterns to develop uninterrupted. By the time consequences appear, the behavior feels ingrained. This is why change feels difficult later. You are not fighting a single choice, you are challenging a psychological structure built through repetition. The resistance you feel is not weakness, it is conditioning. Understanding the psychology of small choices removes confusion. You stop blaming motivation, you stop relying on willpower. You realize that consistency shapes belief, not the other way around. This understanding changes strategy. You stop chasing intensity and start managing repetition. The brain does not need dramatic transformation, it needs consistent signals. Small choices send those signals quietly. Over time, they reshape what feels normal, what feels possible, and what feels inevitable. No choice that is repeated is neutral. Every repeated behavior trains something, either alignment or drift. The psychology of small choices explains why futures feel predetermined, not because destiny is fixed, but because patterns are powerful. When patterns go unexamined, outcomes feel inevitable. When patterns are understood, direction becomes adjustable. In the next chapter, we will explore how repetition does more than shape behavior. It shapes identity itself. You are not becoming what you want. You are becoming what you repeat.
Chapter 4. You are becoming what you repeat. Every day, whether you realize it or not, you're training yourself to be a certain kind of person. Not through your goals, not through your intentions, but through what you repeat. Repetition is the real architect of identity. It works quietly, patiently, without asking for permission. Long before you consciously decide who you want to become, your daily behavior is already making that decision for you. This is why identity rarely changes through declarations, it changes through patterns. What you repeat becomes familiar. What is familiar becomes accepted. What is accepted becomes you. The mind does not wait for belief before forming identity. It waits for evidence. Every repeated action is evidence. Each time you follow through, the brain records reliability. Each time you avoid, it records hesitation. Over time, these records form a self-image that feels stable and true, even if it was never chosen intentionally. This is why people often feel trapped by who they are. The trap was built gradually, reinforced by thousands of small repetitions that seemed insignificant at the time. Identity is not who you say you are when motivated. It is who you prove yourself to be when no one is watching. The brain trusts behavior more than words. Promises fade, actions persist. If you repeatedly act tired, distracted, or avoided, the brain concludes that this is who you are. If you repeatedly act disciplined, patient, or focused, the brain adopts that conclusion just as easily. This process is neutral. It does not judge, it simply records. What makes this dangerous is how subtle the training is. No single action defines you, but repetition removes doubt. Once a behavior crosses a certain threshold, it stops feeling like a choice and starts feeling like a trait. People say things like, "I'm just not consistent," or "I've never been disciplined," without realizing they are describing a history of repetition, not an unchangeable personality. The brain confuses familiarity with truth. This confusion is reinforced by emotion. Repeated behaviors shape how you feel about yourself. Each small follow-through builds quiet confidence. Each small avoidance builds quiet doubt. These emotional signals accumulate until they form a baseline. That baseline becomes your emotional home. From there, behavior reinforces emotion, and emotion reinforces identity. This loop is powerful because it operates without conscious oversight. Most people are not choosing who they are becoming, they are defaulting into it. This is why change feels threatening. It challenges not just habit, but identity. When you attempt to act differently, the brain experiences friction. It feels wrong even if the action is beneficial. That discomfort is not a sign of failure, it is a sign that you are interrupting a pattern. The brain resists because it prefers predictability over improvement. Repetition creates certainty. Certainty feels safe. Even when the outcome is limiting, the mind clings to what it knows. This is why people often return to old behaviors under stress. Stress narrows focus. Under pressure, a brain defaults to the most familiar identity. Not the most ambitious, not the most logical, the most rehearsed. This reveals a critical truth. If you want to change who you become under pressure, you must change what you repeat when things are calm. Identity is trained during ordinary days, not crisis moments. Small daily actions determine how you respond when it matters. This understanding removes self-criticism. You stop asking why you lack confidence or discipline and start asking what you have been rehearsing. Confidence is not a mindset you adopt. It is the emotional byproduct of repeated self-trust. Discipline is not willpower. It is the identity that forms when follow-through becomes normal. The most powerful part of repetition is that it works in both directions. The same mechanism that locks people into limitation can free them into growth. You do not need to overhaul your life. You need to change what you repeat. One aligned action, performed consistently, begins rewriting identity. The brain notices. It updates its expectations. Slowly, resistance decreases. What once felt forced begins to feel natural. This is how identity shifts without drama, not through confrontation, but through evidence. This is also why motivation is unreliable. Motivation tries to change behavior without changing identity. Repetition changes identity first, and behavior follows automatically. When identity shifts, actions feel easier because they are no longer foreign. They match who you believe you are. This is the quiet power of small daily decisions. They are not about productivity. They are about self-definition. Every day you are answering a question with your behavior. The question is simple. Who are you becoming? The answer is never given in words. It is given in repetition. This chapter is not about pressure or perfection. It is about awareness. You do not need to judge yourself for past patterns. You only need to recognize them. From that recognition comes choice. Once you see that identity is built through repetition, you stop waiting for permission to change. You stop waiting to feel different. You act differently first. The feeling follows. In the next chapter, we will explore one of the most dangerous forces shaping repetition without consent: comfort. Understanding how comfort quietly rewires ambition is essential if you want your small decisions to work for you instead of against you. Chapter 5. The Comfort Trap. Comfort rarely feels dangerous. It feels earned. It feels reasonable. It feels like a reward for effort, stress, or survival. This is what makes it so deceptive. Comfort does not arrive as an enemy. It arrives as relief. And once relief becomes routine, it quietly reshapes ambition, discipline, and direction without ever raising suspicion. The comfort trap is not about luxury. It is about repetition. Small comforts chosen daily train the brain to avoid discomfort as a default response. Over time, this avoidance becomes preference, and preference becomes identity. The brain quickly learns that comfort equals safety. Effort begins to feel unnecessary. Discomfort begins to feel threatening. This shift does not happen overnight. It happens slowly, through choices that feel harmless in isolation. Skipping effort because you are tired. Choosing ease because you deserve it. Delaying action because tomorrow feels safer. None of these choices feel like surrender. They feel like self-care. But repetition turns them into a pattern, and patterns decide outcomes. Comfort is dangerous because it compounds invisibly. It does not break you suddenly. It softens you gradually. The mind adapts to whatever environment it is repeatedly placed in. When comfort becomes constant, tolerance for discomfort decreases. Tasks that once felt manageable begin to feel heavy. Challenges that once felt exciting begin to feel stressful. This creates a feedback loop. Reduced tolerance leads to more avoidance. More avoidance leads to greater discomfort when effort is required. Eventually, effort feels foreign. The most subtle part of the comfort trap is that it disguises itself as stability. Life does not collapse, it simply stagnates. Progress slows quietly. Ambition dulls without announcement. You are not failing, you are just no longer moving forward with intention. This is why comfort is more dangerous than struggle. Struggle demands response. Comfort invites drift. The brain prefers what is familiar, even if it is limiting. Once comfort becomes the baseline, anything that threatens it is resisted. Growth is framed as unnecessary stress. Discipline is framed as punishment. This reframing is automatic. The brain is protecting its preferred state. Comfort also changes how time is perceived. When effort is avoided, days blur together. There is less contrast, less friction, less sense of progress. People often say time is moving faster as they get older. In reality, fewer meaningful challenges are being engaged. Without challenge, memory compresses. Life feels shorter not because it is, but because less is being actively built. Comfort also weakens decision-making. When the brain is trained to avoid discomfort, it chooses short-term relief over long-term benefit more frequently. This does not feel like poor judgment. It feels practical, reasonable, sensible. But repeated enough, it lowers standards quietly. What once felt unacceptable becomes normal. What once felt below your potential begins to feel like who you are. The comfort trap does not eliminate ambition instantly. It erodes it gradually. Ambition requires tolerance for uncertainty and discomfort. Comfort removes both. It creates a false sense of security while quietly shrinking the range of what feels possible. This is why people often feel capable in theory, but hesitant in action. Their mind still sees potential, but their nervous system resists the discomfort required to pursue it. Comfort also rewires reward. The brain releases satisfaction when discomfort is avoided rather than overcome. This flips the reward system. Instead of feeling rewarded for effort, you feel rewarded for relief. Over time, effort loses its emotional payoff. This makes discipline feel draining rather than energizing. The comfort trap is reinforced socially. Modern environments normalize convenience and instant relief. Effort is optional. Delay is discouraged. Friction is removed wherever possible. This makes comfort feel like progress. But convenience does not build capacity. It reduces it. Capacity is built by exposure to manageable discomfort. Without that exposure, resilience weakens. The comfort trap does not require indulgence. It thrives on justification. You tell yourself you will push later. You tell yourself now is not the right time. You tell yourself you have earned rest. Occasionally, this is true. Repeated daily, it becomes a habit of retreat. The danger is not rest. It is defaulting to rest whenever effort appears. Comfort becomes the decision-maker instead of intention. This chapter is not about rejecting ease entirely. It is about recognizing when ease is no longer recovery, but avoidance. Recovery restores capacity. Avoidance erodes it. The difference is subtle but critical. One prepares you to engage again. The other teaches you to disengage by default. Awareness breaks the comfort trap. Once you notice how often comfort is chosen automatically, you regain choice. You begin to see small moments where effort could be applied intentionally. Not dramatically, not heroically, just consistently. This is how the trap is escaped. Not by rejecting comfort completely, but by refusing to let it decide your direction. The future is not shaped by what feels good today. It is shaped by what you are willing to repeat even when it feels uncomfortable. In the next chapter, we will explore why discipline, when applied in small, consistent ways, compounds faster and more reliably than motivation ever could, and how discipline quietly becomes freedom rather than restriction over time.
Chapter 6. How discipline compounds faster than motivation. Motivation feels powerful because it arrives loudly. It creates a surge of energy, a sense of clarity, a temporary belief that change will be easy this time. Discipline arrives quietly. It does not inspire. It does not excite. It simply asks you to act anyway. This difference is why motivation is celebrated and discipline is misunderstood, and why so many people start strong and fade while others move steadily forward without drama. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is structural. Emotion fluctuates. Structure compounds. Motivation depends on how you feel. Discipline operates regardless of mood. In the beginning, motivation feels like progress because it creates movement, but movement without direction or consistency dissipates. Discipline creates direction first, then movement follows naturally. This is why discipline compounds faster than motivation. It builds something motivation cannot sustain: reliability. The brain learns trust through consistency.
Every time you follow through despite resistance, you send a signal that you are dependable. That signal accumulates. Over time, self-trust forms. Self-trust changes behavior automatically. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop waiting for the right feeling. Action becomes the default. Motivation tries to push you forward from the outside. Discipline pulls you forward from the inside. Motivation fades the moment conditions change. Discipline adapts. When energy is high, discipline channels it. When energy is low, discipline preserves momentum. This is why disciplined people appear calm and stable. They are not riding emotional waves. They are anchored to systems. Discipline compounds because it reduces friction over time. What feels difficult at first becomes familiar through repetition. Familiarity lowers resistance. Lower resistance makes consistency easier. This creates a loop where discipline requires less effort the longer it is practiced. Motivation works in the opposite direction. It feels easy at first and becomes harder to maintain as novelty fades. Discipline does not rely on novelty. It relies on commitment to repetition. This repetition reshapes identity. When you act consistently, the brain updates its expectations. You stop seeing discipline as something you force yourself to do. You begin to see it as who you are. This identity shift is where compounding accelerates. Once discipline becomes part of self-image, actions align automatically. You no longer need motivation to start because starting feels natural. Discipline also protects against emotional volatility. Motivation collapses under stress. Discipline remains. When life becomes unpredictable, motivation becomes unreliable. Discipline creates stability. It allows you to maintain progress even when conditions are imperfect. This is why disciplined individuals continue moving forward while others pause indefinitely, waiting to feel ready again. Discipline compounds because it builds capacity. Each act of follow-through strengthens your ability to tolerate discomfort. Tolerance expands range. What once felt difficult becomes manageable. What once felt overwhelming becomes routine. Motivation does not build this capacity. It bypasses it. It carries you temporarily without strengthening the underlying system. This is why people who rely on motivation feel exhausted when it disappears. Discipline has been training quietly the entire time. Another reason discipline compounds faster is that it creates feedback. Small acts of discipline produce small wins. Small wins create emotional reinforcement. That reinforcement increases confidence. Confidence reduces resistance. Resistance reduction increases consistency. Consistency amplifies results. This chain reaction does not depend on inspiration. It depends on showing up. Discipline also narrows focus. Motivation often scatters attention. It creates ambition in many directions at once. Discipline chooses one direction and honors it daily. This focus prevents dilution. Energy is concentrated. Progress becomes visible. Visible progress reinforces discipline. The loop strengthens. Discipline is not harsh. It is honest. It does not promise ease. It promises reliability. Over time, reliability becomes freedom. When you can trust yourself to act consistently, you stop feeling trapped by indecision. You stop feeling dependent on mood. You stop negotiating with yourself endlessly. Discipline removes internal conflict by replacing choice with commitment. Motivation creates hope. Discipline creates results. Hope feels good. Results change identity. This is why discipline ultimately feels better, even though it is less exciting at the start. It produces evidence. Evidence quiets doubt. Doubt is what drains energy most. Discipline also survives failure. Motivation collapses when perfection is broken. Discipline adjusts and continues. Missing once does not destroy discipline. Quitting does. Discipline teaches recovery rather than self-punishment. This resilience accelerates compounding because momentum is rarely lost completely. In a world that glorifies intensity, discipline looks unremarkable. That is its advantage. It does not attract attention, it attracts outcomes. While others wait for the next surge of inspiration, discipline quietly builds the future in the background. This chapter reframes effort. Discipline is not restriction, it is direction. It is choosing what matters once and honoring that choice repeatedly. Motivation asks how you feel today. Discipline asks who you are becoming. The future is shaped by the answer to the second question.
In the next chapter, we will confront the hidden cost of ignoring small daily decisions and why neglect compounds faster than effort ever could, often revealing itself only when it feels too late to change. Chapter 7. The Cost of Ignoring Small Decisions. The most expensive mistakes in life rarely feel like mistakes when they are made. They feel like nothing, a skipped action, a delayed response, a small compromise you assume you will correct later. Ignoring small decisions does not create immediate pain, which is why it feels safe, but safety in the present often hides cost in the future. The price is not charged up front, it accumulates quietly, compounding until it appears all at once as regret, stagnation, or the unsettling feeling of being far from where you intended to be. Small decisions are dangerous because they create a false sense of neutrality. You tell yourself that not choosing is harmless, that postponing effort does not count as choosing against your goals. In reality, inaction is a decision with direction. When a small decision is ignored, the default path continues. Over time, defaults become destiny. This is how people wake up years later wondering how they drifted so far from their original vision. The drift did not happen in dramatic steps, it happened through neglect. Neglect compounds faster than effort because it requires no energy. It does not ask for discipline. It does not create resistance. It simply allows patterns to continue unchecked. Every ignored decision reinforces the status quo. The brain interprets this reinforcement as confirmation. If nothing changes, the mind assumes nothing needs to change. This assumption becomes dangerous when the direction is wrong. Ignoring small decisions also weakens self-trust. Each time you know what you should do and choose not to do it, a quiet fracture forms. You may not feel it immediately, but the brain records it. Over time, these fractures accumulate. You stop believing yourself when you make plans. You hesitate before committing. You lower expectations to avoid disappointment. This erosion of self-trust is one of the heaviest costs of neglect. It makes progress feel harder than it needs to be. People often confuse this feeling with lack of ability. In reality, it is the emotional weight of repeated self-neglect. The cost also appears in missed opportunities. Opportunities rarely arrive fully formed. They require preparation. Small daily decisions create readiness. When those decisions are ignored, readiness declines. When opportunity finally appears, you feel unprepared, not because you lack talent, but because you neglected the small actions that would have positioned you to respond. Ignored decisions close doors quietly. No one tells you they were closed. You simply never get the chance to walk through them. Another cost of neglect is increased sensitivity to effort. When small challenges are consistently avoided, tolerance for discomfort decreases. Tasks that require focus or persistence begin to feel overwhelming. This creates a cycle where effort feels harder precisely because it has been avoided. The mind interprets effort as threat rather than growth. What once felt manageable now feels exhausting. This is not aging, it is deconditioning. Small decisions ignored also distort time perception. When days are filled with repetition that requires little engagement, time compresses. Weeks blur, months disappear. Life feels like it is moving quickly, yet nothing substantial is being built. This creates anxiety. You feel busy but unaccomplished. The busyness masks the neglect. You are occupied but not progressing. The cost becomes emotional before it becomes practical. Frustration appears without a clear cause. Motivation drops because effort has not been rewarded. Confidence erodes because promises to yourself have gone unfulfilled. People often respond by seeking more motivation, not realizing that the real issue is accumulated neglect. Motivation cannot undo patterns built through avoidance. Awareness can. Ignoring small decisions also creates a distorted sense of fairness. You feel you are trying. You feel you deserve progress. When results do not come, resentment builds. You compare yourself to others. You assume they are lucky or privileged. What you do not see is the quiet consistency behind their progress. The difference is rarely talent. It is attention to small decisions over time. Neglect feels harmless because its consequences are delayed, But delay does not reduce cost, it increases it. The longer a pattern runs unchecked, the harder it is to interrupt. This is why people say change feels impossible later. They are not just changing behavior, they are reversing compounded neglect. This chapter is not about blame, it is about clarity. Ignoring small decisions is not a moral failure, it is a cognitive blind spot. Once you see it, you can correct it. The correction does not require intensity, it requires respect for small actions. Respect restores power. When you begin honoring small decisions again, self-trust starts to rebuild, capacity returns, tolerance for effort increases, momentum restarts. The cost of ignoring small decisions is real, but it is not permanent. It is reversible, provided you intervene early enough. The earlier you pay attention, the cheaper the correction. The later you wait, the more effort is required to change direction. This is why awareness now matters more than regret later. The future does not punish neglect immediately, it invoices it, and that invoice arrives whether you are ready or not. In the next chapter, we will explore how delaying gratification in a world designed for instant reward has become one of the most powerful small decisions you can make, and why patience now creates disproportionate advantage later.
Chapter 8. Delaying gratification in a world of instant reward. The modern world is designed to make waiting feel unnecessary and uncomfortable. Relief is instant. Entertainment is immediate. Answers arrive in seconds. Discomfort is something to be escaped, not endured. In this environment, delaying gratification feels unnatural, even unreasonable. Yet this single ability has become one of the most decisive forces separating those who move forward steadily from those who remain trapped in cycles of short-term relief and long-term regret. Delaying gratification is not about denying yourself pleasure. It is about choosing the timing of reward with intention. It is about understanding that what feels good now is not always what serves you later, and what feels uncomfortable now is often what protects your future. The brain is wired to prioritize immediate reward because historically, survival depended on it. When resources were scarce, taking what was available made sense. Today, scarcity has been replaced with abundance, but the wiring remains. The result is a constant pull toward immediate satisfaction, even when it undermines long-term outcomes. Every notification, shortcut, and convenience reinforces this pull. Small pleasures arrive effortlessly. Small efforts feel unnecessary. Over time, the brain learns to expect reward without cost. When effort is required, resistance appears. This resistance is not laziness, it is conditioning. Delaying gratification retrains this conditioning. Each time you choose effort over ease, you teach the brain a different rule. You show it that discomfort is survivable and meaningful. This lesson compounds. At first, the delay feels tense. The urge to escape discomfort feels urgent. But when you stay with that tension without acting on it, something shifts. The urgency fades. The brain recalibrates. What once felt unbearable becomes tolerable. What once felt difficult becomes familiar. This is how capacity is built. People often misunderstand delayed gratification as willpower. Willpower is fragile. It relies on constant resistance. Delayed gratification is strategic. It reduces the number of decisions you need to fight by establishing clear priorities. When you know what you are willing to wait for, you stop negotiating with every impulse. This clarity conserves energy. The world of instant reward also distorts effort perception. When reward is immediate, effort feels inefficient. Why work when relief is available now? This mindset shrinks ambition quietly. Goals that require patience begin to feel unrealistic. People start choosing what is easy to obtain rather than what is worth building. Delaying gratification reverses this distortion. It restores respect for effort by reconnecting effort to reward. The reward is delayed, but it is deeper and more stable. It changes how you see yourself. Each delayed impulse strengthens self-trust. You begin to believe that you can tolerate discomfort and still be okay.
This belief changes behavior automatically. You stop fearing effort because you have evidence that you can handle it. Delayed gratification also changes how time is experienced. When you are constantly chasing immediate reward, time feels fragmented. Moments blur together. Satisfaction fades quickly, requiring another hit. When you delay gratification, time stretches. You feel progression. You sense movement towards something meaningful. This creates fulfillment rather than stimulation. Fulfillment lasts longer because it is tied to growth rather than escape. In a world of instant reward, patience has become a competitive advantage. Most people give up when results do not arrive quickly. Those who can wait continue building while others switch directions. This is why delayed gratification compounds so powerfully. It keeps you in the game long enough for results to emerge. Results are rarely immediate, they are layered. Each small effort stacks on the last. The reward arrives not as a single moment, but as momentum. People often assume they lack discipline because they struggle with delayed gratification. In reality, they have simply been trained by their environment to expect immediacy. Training can be reversed. Each time you choose to wait, you weaken the habit of impulse. Each time you choose to act without immediate reward, you strengthen resilience. This process does not require extreme deprivation. It requires small, intentional delays. Finishing the task before checking the phone. Choosing rest after effort, not before. Completing what you started before seeking distraction. These small delays rewire expectation. Over time, the brain stops demanding instant reward. It begins to value progress itself. Delaying gratification also protects focus. Instant rewards fragment attention. Delayed rewards require sustained focus. Sustained focus produces depth. Depth produces quality. Quality produces results that cannot be replicated through shortcuts. This is why those who delay gratification often appear to move slower at first, but surpass others over time. They are building depth while others are collecting stimulation. This chapter is not a rejection of pleasure, it is a reclamation of timing. Pleasure earned through effort feels different. It is grounded. It does not disappear immediately. It reinforces confidence rather than dependence. The future increasingly belongs to those who can resist the pull of immediacy, not because they are stronger, but because they are intentional. Delaying gratification is a small daily decision that changes everything. It trains patience, it builds capacity, it protects direction. In the next chapter, we will explore how small wins, accumulated consistently, create emotional momentum that sustains progress even when motivation fades and challenges increase.
Chapter 9. Small wins create emotional momentum. Progress is not sustained by intensity, it is sustained by emotion. Not dramatic emotion, but the quiet emotional signal that tells you something is working. Small wins provide that signal. They are the bridge between effort and belief. Without them, discipline feels heavy and direction feels uncertain. With them, momentum builds almost automatically. Small wins matter because the human brain is wired to continue behaviors that produce emotional reward. When progress feels invisible, effort feels pointless. When effort feels pointless, consistency collapses. Small wins solve this problem by making progress emotionally visible. They provide evidence that movement is happening, even when outcomes are not yet obvious. This evidence calms doubt. Doubt is what drains energy most. Small wins do not need to be impressive. They need to be consistent. Consistency trains expectation. When you experience repeated small successes, the brain begins to anticipate progress. Anticipation changes behavior. You show up differently. You act with more confidence. You hesitate less. This is emotional momentum at work. Emotional momentum is not excitement. It is quiet confidence. It is the feeling that effort leads somewhere. This feeling changes how challenges are perceived. Obstacles feel temporary rather than threatening. Setbacks feel manageable rather than defeating. Without emotional momentum, even small obstacles feel overwhelming. With it,
Larger challenges feel navigable. This is why people often quit, not because the task is too hard, but because they feel no emotional return on effort. Small wins provide that return. They tell the brain that patience is being rewarded. This encourages further effort. The loop strengthens. Effort produces a small win. The win produces confidence. Confidence reduces resistance. Reduced resistance increases effort. The cycle compounds. Small wins also reshape identity. Each win reinforces the belief that you are someone who follows through. This belief is powerful. It reduces the need for motivation. You act because it matches who you believe you are. Identity-driven behavior is stable. It does not fluctuate with mood. Small wins also protect against burnout. Large goals without intermediate reinforcement create pressure. Pressure accumulates. Burnout follows. Small wins break goals into manageable segments. They distribute reward throughout the process rather than postponing it indefinitely. This makes long-term effort sustainable. The emotional system remains engaged rather than exhausted. In a world obsessed with big results, small wins are often dismissed as insignificant. This is a mistake. Big results are simply the accumulation of many small wins layered over time. Those who focus only on the end often lose motivation before they arrive. Those who focus on small wins stay engaged long enough for the end to appear. Emotional momentum also improves focus. When you experience progress, attention narrows naturally. Distractions lose appeal. You are less tempted by immediate gratification because you are already receiving satisfaction from movement. This reduces the internal conflict between effort and ease. Progress becomes its own reward. Small wins are especially powerful during difficult periods. When energy is low and motivation is absent, small wins keep you connected to direction. They prevent complete disengagement. Even minimal progress maintains continuity. Continuity is what prevents restart fatigue. Restarting is expensive emotionally. Continuing, even slowly, preserves momentum. This is why consistency matters more than speed. Speed creates spikes. Consistency creates flow. Small wins also correct perception. When progress is slow, the mind exaggerates distance to the goal. Small wins shrink that distance psychologically. Each completed action makes the next feel closer. The path feels navigable rather than endless. This perception shift reduces anxiety. Reduced anxiety increases performance. Small wins also build resilience. Each success, no matter how small, strengthens the belief that effort is worthwhile. This belief carries through setbacks. When something goes wrong, you do not collapse. You recall previous wins. You know recovery is possible. This memory provides stability. The absence of small wins creates the opposite effect. One failure feels like confirmation of doubt. Everything feels fragile. Small wins inoculate against this fragility. This chapter reframes progress. Progress is not about dramatic breakthroughs. It is about emotional continuity. Small wins keep the emotional system aligned with effort. They make the process feel alive. Without them, even the best plan eventually collapses under its own weight. The future is built through accumulated emotional momentum. Those who understand this stop chasing motivation and start designing for small wins. They make progress inevitable by making it emotionally rewarding. In the next chapter, we will explore how your environment quietly shapes your daily decisions, often more powerfully than willpower, and how redesigning your surroundings can make better choices easier without relying on constant self-control.
Chapter 10. The environment that shapes your decisions. Most people believe their decisions come from willpower. They assume that good choices are a matter of discipline and bad choices are a matter of weakness. This belief feels empowering, but it is incomplete. In reality, your environment makes more decisions for you than your motivation ever will. What surrounds you quietly shapes what feels easy, what feels difficult, and what feels normal. Long before you consciously choose, your environment has already nudged you in a direction. This is why two people with the same intentions can live completely different lives. Their environments are training them differently every day. The brain is highly sensitive to cues. Visual signals, convenience, friction, and availability all influence behavior automatically. When something is visible and easy, it is chosen more often. When something is hidden or inconvenient, it is avoided. This is not a character flaw, it is neurological efficiency. The brain conserves energy by responding to what is immediately accessible. Environment determines accessibility. This means that willpower is not a reliable strategy for long-term change. Willpower asks you to fight your surroundings repeatedly. Environment design removes the fight entirely. Small environmental cues accumulate just like small decisions. A phone within reach invites distraction. A cluttered space invites mental noise. A schedule without boundaries invites reaction. Over time, these cues shape behavior without your permission. You do not wake up and decide to lose focus. Focus is eroded by an environment that constantly pulls attention away. The most dangerous environments are not chaotic ones, they are comfortable ones that enable avoidance. Environments that allow you to delay, distract, and disengage without consequence slowly train you to do exactly that. This is why progress often stalls even when motivation exists. The environment is reinforcing the opposite behavior. Motivation cannot outwork constant friction. Environment always wins in the long run. This is why disciplined people appear effortless. They are not fighting temptation constantly. They have removed it. They have designed their surroundings to support the decisions they want to repeat. The environment does the heavy lifting. This does not require extreme control. It requires intention. Small adjustments produce disproportionate results. Removing distractions instead of resisting them, making effort visible instead of optional, structuring time instead of hoping for it. These adjustments change default behavior. Default behavior is powerful because it requires no decision. The future is shaped by defaults more than desires. Your environment also influences identity. When your surroundings support certain behaviors, those behaviors feel like part of who you are. When the environment resists them, they feel foreign. This is why change often feels unnatural. You are trying to act against the cues that trained you. Redesigning environment reduces this resistance. The behavior stops feeling forced and starts feeling normal. This is how identity shifts without struggle. Environment also affects emotional state. Light, noise, order, and space all influence mood. Mood influences decision-making. When the environment creates low-level stress, decisions become short-sighted. When the environment supports calm, decisions become deliberate. You cannot consistently make long-term decisions in an environment that constantly induces urgency. This is why people feel productive in some spaces and drained in others. The space is doing part of the work. Time environment matters as much as physical environment. Unstructured time invites reaction. Structured time invites intention. When time is undefined, the loudest demand wins. When time is designed, priorities are protected. This is not about rigid schedules, it is about clarity. Knowing when effort happens removes negotiation. Negotiation drains energy. Environment eliminates negotiation by making the decision once. This chapter challenges the idea that success requires constant self-control. Self-control is expensive. It relies on repeated resistance. Environment design is efficient. It aligns behavior automatically. Those who rely solely on willpower burn out. Those who redesign their environment conserve energy and compound progress quietly. The environment also determines recovery. Spaces that encourage rest after effort preserve momentum. Environments that blur work and rest exhaust it. Without recovery, discipline collapses. Environment protects balance by signaling when to engage and when to disengage. This signaling reduces internal conflict. When the environment is aligned, effort feels lighter. This is why environment change often produces immediate results, not because you became more motivated, but because friction was removed. The smallest environmental changes often produce the biggest behavioral shifts because they operate continuously. They work even when you are tired, even when you are distracted, even when motivation is gone. This makes them reliable. Reliability is what builds the future. The future is not shaped by heroic effort in hostile environments. It is shaped by sustainable behavior in supportive ones.
When you design your environment intentionally, you stop fighting yourself. You stop blaming willpower. You start making progress inevitable. In the next chapter, we will move from environment to intention and explore how becoming deliberate with your days transforms ordinary time into a powerful force that quietly shapes decades rather than moments.
Chapter 11. Becoming intentional with your days. Most people underestimate the power of an ordinary day. They believe life is shaped by milestones, turning points, and rare moments of inspiration. In reality, decades are built out of days that feel routine and forgettable. What makes the difference is not how extraordinary a day feels, but how intentional it is lived. Days decide decades because they are the smallest unit of time that still carries choice. When days are lived reactively, life drifts. When days are lived intentionally, direction becomes inevitable. Intentional living does not mean rigid control or constant productivity. It means deciding in advance what matters and allowing that decision to shape how your time is used. Most people wake up and respond. Messages, demands, distractions, moods. The day pulls them rather than the other way around. Reaction feels natural because it requires no planning, but reaction compounds chaos. Each reactive day reinforces a life shaped by urgency rather than purpose. Intentional days interrupt this pattern. They replace reaction with direction. Becoming intentional starts with awareness. You begin to notice how easily time is consumed by things that do not move you forward, not because they are harmful, but because they are default. Default behavior fills space. Without intention, days become containers for whatever arrives first or loudest. Intention sets boundaries. It decides what deserves space before the day begins. This does not require grand plans. It requires clarity, knowing one or two things that matter and protecting them consistently. Intentional days respect energy. They do not demand maximum output at all times. They recognize that effort has rhythms. Focus comes in waves. Rest is not laziness, it is preparation. When days are intentional, effort and recovery are placed deliberately rather than accidentally. This balance preserves momentum. Burnout is not caused by hard work alone. It is caused by unstructured effort without recovery. Intentional days prevent this by giving effort a container. One of the most powerful shifts in becoming intentional is learning to end days deliberately. Most people end days exhausted and distracted, scrolling or numbing until sleep arrives. This teaches the brain that days end in depletion. Over time, mornings feel heavy because the nervous system anticipates exhaustion. Intentional endings change this. They create closure. Reflection, planning, or simple quiet marks the end of effort. This trains the brain to associate days with completion rather than drain. Completion builds satisfaction. Satisfaction fuels consistency. Intentional days also change self-perception. When you consistently choose how your day unfolds, even in small ways, you reinforce agency. You stop feeling like life is happening to you. You feel involved. This sense of involvement reduces anxiety. Anxiety often comes from lack of control over time. Intentionality restores a sense of authorship. You may not control outcomes, but you can control inputs. Inputs shape outcomes eventually. Many people avoid intentionality because they fear pressure. They associate planning with rigidity or failure. In reality, intentional days reduce pressure. They remove constant decision-making. When you decide in advance what matters, you stop negotiating with yourself all day. Negotiation drains energy. Clarity conserves it. Intentionality does not eliminate flexibility. It provides structure within which flexibility can exist. This structure protects what matters from being crowded out by what is urgent. Over time, intentional days create alignment. Actions begin to match values. Time begins to reflect priorities. This alignment produces calm. You no longer feel pulled in conflicting directions. Even when progress is slow, it feels meaningful. Meaning sustains effort longer than urgency ever could. Intentional living also reframes success. Success is no longer measured by dramatic outcomes, but by days lived in alignment. This makes success repeatable. You do not need to wait for results to feel fulfilled. Fulfillment comes from consistency.
Results arrive as a byproduct. This is how ordinary days become powerful. They stop being empty space between goals and start becoming the work itself. The future is not built in moments of intensity. It is built in how you spend your Tuesdays, your quiet mornings, your tired evenings. Intentional days stack quietly. You may not feel transformation immediately, but direction is being reinforced. Over time, this reinforcement becomes visible. Life begins to resemble what you have been practicing. This chapter is an invitation to respect the day, not as something to endure or escape, but as the place where your future is quietly assembled. You do not need perfect days, you need intentional ones. Even partially intentional days move you forward. The difference between drift and direction is not effort, it is attention. When you bring attention to how your days are lived, you begin shaping time instead of losing it. In the next chapter, we will bring everything together and look at the future you are quietly building through these small daily decisions and why direction, not speed, ultimately determines where you end up.
Chapter 12. The future you are quietly building. The future rarely arrives the way people expect. It does not announce itself with certainty or clarity. It shows up as a life that feels familiar, almost obvious, as if it could not have been any other way. By the time most people notice where they have ended up, the work has already been done, not through dramatic moments or bold declarations, but through small daily decisions repeated so consistently they faded into the background. The future you are building is already under construction. Every ordinary day adds another layer. Every small choice either reinforces the structure or weakens it. Nothing is neutral. Standing still is an illusion. You are always moving in a direction, even when it feels like nothing is happening. This is why direction matters more than speed. Speed creates noise. Direction creates inevitability. Many people confuse effort with progress. They rush, hustle, and exhaust themselves without examining where they are headed. Movement feels productive, but movement without direction only accelerates drift. Small daily decisions act like a compass. They point you toward a future long before you arrive. When the compass is ignored, speed only takes you farther from where you intended to go. When the compass is honored, even slow progress leads somewhere meaningful. The future is shaped by what you normalize. What you tolerate today becomes tomorrow's baseline. What you repeat becomes what you expect. Over time, expectation becomes identity. Identity becomes behavior. Behavior becomes outcome. This chain is quiet but relentless. It does not require belief. It only requires repetition. This is why people often feel as though their future was decided without their consent. In reality, it was decided through patterns they did not examine. The good news is that the same mechanism that locks people into unwanted futures can free them into better ones. Small decisions work in both directions. They can erode or they can build. The difference is awareness. Once you see the process, you regain agency. You realize that change does not require a new personality or extraordinary effort. It requires choosing a direction and respecting it daily. The future you are quietly building reflects what you have practiced. If you practice avoidance, the future feels constrained. If you practice consistency, the future feels open. If you practice comfort, the future feels stagnant. If you practice discipline, the future feels stable. These outcomes are not moral judgments, they are mechanical results of repetition. Understanding this removes shame. You stop blaming yourself for where you are. You start taking responsibility for where you are going. Responsibility is not pressure, it is power. It means the future is not fixed, it is being negotiated daily. The negotiation happens in small moments, when you choose to follow through, when you choose to delay, when you choose effort over ease, when you choose intention over reaction. These moments rarely feel important. That is why they work. They shape the future quietly, without resistance. The future does not care about your intentions. It responds to your habits. It responds to what you practice when no one is watching. This is why awareness of small daily decisions is transformative. It turns ordinary moments into leverage. You begin to see choice where you once saw routine. You begin to feel direction where you once felt stuck. Over time, this awareness changes how you experience life. Anxiety decreases because the future no longer feels random. Confidence increases because you trust the process you are building.
Even uncertainty becomes manageable because you know your direction is stable. The future belongs to those who understand this principle, not because they are more talented or more motivated, but because they are consistent. Consistency is unglamorous. It does not trend, it does not impress, but it works. While others search for breakthroughs, consistent individuals accumulate momentum. While others wait for clarity, consistent individuals create it through action. This is why small daily decisions decide your future, not in theory, but in practice. The future is not something you chase, it is something you allow to emerge by repeating aligned behavior. You do not need to control everything, you only need to control the direction you practice. When direction is clear, speed becomes irrelevant. Time does the rest. This chapter is not an ending, it is a reminder. You are already building something. The question is not whether your actions matter, it is what they are adding up to. When you respect small decisions, you respect the future they create. When you ignore them, you outsource your future to default patterns. The choice is not dramatic, it is quiet. It is available every day. The future you are quietly building will one day feel obvious. Make sure it feels intentional.
This book was never about changing your life overnight. It was about helping you see what has been shaping it all along. Small decisions, ordinary days, repeated actions that felt too minor to matter until they did. Nothing in your future requires a dramatic transformation. It requires awareness and direction. You do not need to become someone new. You need to become more consistent with who you already want to be. From this point forward, every small decision is an opportunity, not to be perfect, but to be intentional. The future will arrive either way. The difference is whether you recognize that you are building it now. Close this book knowing that nothing is wasted, not effort, not patience, not small progress. Time will do what it always does. It will compound whatever you repeat.